Well, education is one of those things that always brings up debates, like public school, private school, whatnot. But we do lose sight of how much of an education our children need at home. Homeschooling, if you are able to do so, is in general, in my opinion, the best option. But even if you don't homeschool, you have to educate your children at home. Yes, my children, they go to school. They learn math and things like that, and they're not going to get any algebra from me. But the best lessons in life are learned at home. We have to be educators at home, no matter who we are. So I thought Abby Roth would be the first person, probably the best person I could think of to talk about this kind of thing, creator of the first generation stay-at-home mom. Abby, which school can educate your children as well as you can?
Not one. Honestly, I don't think there's any school out there that could do as good of a job as I could do. And that is not just coming from somebody who, has prepared myself mentally. I think that a lot of people, a lot of women, a lot of parents have been convinced that they would not be able to educate their children at home. They're just not capable. How could anyone do this huge undertaking of raising their kids at home and homeschooling? And it's such a disservice to us as parents. We really do have the capability to teach our own children. That's what people were doing for generations before public school became the thing. And it's so disappointing to look at my friends, to look at everyone I know who thinks that homeschooling is weird. And then for me to look at my own children and be like, oh, my 2.5-year-old expressed an interest in the moon. And now he knows literally everything there is to know about spaceships and space shuttles. And it's just because he expressed an interest. I thought that was really cool. I took him to the library. We watched some videos. We talked about it. And all of a sudden, he's an expert. I'm an expert. Something I never gave a crap about before my son was interested. Excuse my language. But before my son cared about space, you could not have paid me to care about space. And then because my son was interested, all of a sudden, I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. Because if my kid is interested, then so am I, and we can learn together as a team.
Abby, please tell me you have discovered, if not, you're gonna get on Amazon right as soon as we're done talking here. Please tell me you have discovered the greatness of the glowing planet and star ecosystem kits you have, because I had a kid who was obsessed with this same thing. And when you turn out his lights in his room at night, we set up, it took a while to do it, but of course he was involved in it. We had like the ecosystem on the walls and the ceiling. It was sick. And he would just sit there and point everything out. I'm telling you, you need to nerd out on that if you haven't already.
Yeah, sounds like I should.
Yeah, all right. Now, back to what we were just discussing. Us, separate of this, young moms hear you say that, because it's generally going to be the mom doing the homeschooling, understandably. Young moms hear you say that, and they'll immediately think, well, I'm sure Abby is, has some genius education. I'm not what she is. I didn't even go to college. I can't even do algebra. I can't. And these are very understandable fears, because mothers, or fathers too, they don't want to fail their children. They don't want to set their children back. So to every mother out there watching you on television right now saying, well, yeah, she's smart and qualified, I'm an idiot, will you please talk to that woman?
Yes. I am not more qualified than you are. I don't have a degree in education. I don't think anyone needs a degree in education. And also, I will tell you that most teachers in public schools do not have degrees in education. When you are home with your kids, it's homeschooling. There's a ton of books on this topic. I'm currently reading a book called Kids Don't Need School that specifically talks about this. But even going back to the book, Weapons of Mass Instruction, that book teaches you what schools are actually doing. And what schools are actually doing is using the Prussian model of education. Now, the Prussian model of education was really about getting little kids and educating people to be compliant. That was the point, was we want you to be little kind of robots working for the government. And we don't want you to ask any questions. We want you to memorize, take tests, sit in your seat. And we still do this today, right? We're still using this model of education now to teach our children. And we think that that's normal, that it's normal for kids to take tests, that it's important for kids to be tested and to study and to sit for hours on end, when there are studies and studies and studies showing that little kids, especially little boys, cannot sit for that long and are then diagnosed with ADHD because they can't sit for an inordinate amount of time. But this Prussian model of education really does a disservice to students, to children. It teaches them how to sit. It teaches them how to memorize. It teaches them how to listen to instructions and not ask questions. And what people say is, oh, we're preparing them for the workforce. Well, there's a reason that people are afraid to become entrepreneurial, because they don't have the skill set to work outside of a system. So the reason I bring all this up is because you don't have to educate your children in the Prussian model. You can educate your children to love learning. And to do that, all you have to do is follow your children's interests. If you follow your children's interests, they will end up learning far more than they ever would in school. There is so much for them to explore, for you to help them explore. And on top of that, there are so many resources. There are homeschooling co-ops. There's conventions in almost every state, maybe every state, for homeschooling parents, where you can make connections, where you can find curriculum. And if you're not the one who can teach your child algebra, there's someone who will be happy to tutor your child. I mean, there are so many avenues to homeschooling your children and taking responsibility, not just for your kids' education, but for who they are. And that for me is so important, is that homeschooling isn't just about teaching your child how to love learning and teaching your child certain topics. It's also that you're home with them all the time. So you get to shepherd them and make them the kind of person that you hope they will be.
Amen. Now, your 7-year-old boy, he can't sit still, and it's not because he has ADHD. It's because he's a 7-year-old boy. That's why he can't sit still. Okay, so let's talk about making friends. This is another very big concern, one of those traditional things about traditional concerns about homeschooling. Well, I don't want my kid to be a weirdo. I don't want him to be some freak without any friends. My kid, he wants to play sports. He's a basketball player. He won't be able to do that. Will you talk to those people, please?
Yes. Socialization is the stupidest argument against homeschooling. It drives me crazy for a number of reasons. One, the socialization that happens in schools is entirely unnatural, because we separate children not just by age range, but by specific age. In no other time in history have we said the only friends you're allowed to have are 8 years old. You're 8, now you can only be friends with 8-year-olds. That is insane. Real socialization is spending time with people who are older than you and younger than you, spending time with adults, spending time with babies, spending time with people who are different from you and in different stages of life than you are. And so the socialization that we think is normal is not. Also, what does socialized even mean? What does weird even mean? When we look at public schools, do we think that the children that are coming out of public schools are normal? Especially in today's day and age, when public schools are pushing all of these crazy ideologies on kids. You look at the kids who are coming out and they're struggling with their sexuality, their identity, who they are, what they want. I wouldn't call that normal. And they're screen addicted. When you have children at home, they're able to socialize, because of the things like I mentioned, co-ops, even just going out in the world. If I take my kids to the grocery store, they're meeting everybody there. They want to say hi. They want to meet the person who's checking them out. I mean, that's socialization in and of itself. But they also have a ton of friends just from the different mommy groups we go to and the library. And for us, and a huge thing I think is so important, is our religious community. I think a lot of homeschooling moms spend time in their religious communities. And for us, even if we didn't see anybody all week, which doesn't happen frequently, we have a lot of play dates. But if we didn't see anyone all week, on Saturday for us, because we're Jewish, we spend all day with our community. So my kids are incredibly connected with people from all different age ranges at our synagogue. And that's a huge blessing. I would never say that a child at home is going to be less socialized, because unless you are literally keeping them closed in at home, you are going to have a chance for your child to meet other people and spend time with other kids their age, including, by the way, their siblings, who they spend far less time with when they are, you might hear my children right now, when they are at school than when they are home. Because I think about this all the time, that my kids spend all day together, learn how to function together. And when they are separated and when they are at other, in daycare, in schools, whatever it is, they see each other maybe a couple of hours a day.
Mm-hmm. One final question, then you have to go find out what those kids are breaking in the background. American parents are watching this, and they want to know, what's step one? How do I get started? I'm a nervous parent, Abby. I don't know where do I go? Is it a website? Is it a book? What do I do? Where do I go to?
I mean, I think the first step, yes, there are books that you can read just to educate yourself on different schooling methods. I mean, there's a lot of different methods out there. There's classical education, there's kind of unschooling, there's Montessori, there's all these different kinds of methods out there. But the first thing I always say is just follow your child's interest. Just see, what is your child interested in? Really, the thing that changed my mind was I had a friend who was telling me about how she was in school and hated learning. And her mother just said, you know what, we're done. I'm taking you out of school. You need to learn how to love learning again. And if that's your kid, and if you're looking at your kid and you're saying, this kid hates to read, this kid hates going to school every day, you need to ask yourself, do you want to see your child hate learning by the time they're 15? Do you want to see your child be so disinterested in taking in new information and doing something exciting with their time, which I think is learning new ideas? Then it's maybe something to consider. Like, maybe I should take my child home. Maybe I should take my child into homeschooling, and we can explore a new avenue here, because it is so disappointing to see the light go out of children's eyes when it comes to new concepts, new things that they've never learned about. I mean, a toddler is never going to be bored if they're being exposed to new ideas. So why does that have to ever fade? And if we see it fading because of school, then it might be a good idea to take them out and bring them home.
Might be a really good idea. And I promise at home no one will teach them they have to be gay. Abby, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate you as always. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.